Hello and welcome to The Cast of Us, a podcast dedicated to The Last of Us on HBO and brought to you by the Fan Critical Podcast Network. We are back with our hot take, and sadly, this is the last hot take of the season, as this is, of course, covering the season finale of Season 1 of The Last of Us. Here, every week, we come to you straight after the episode has aired with our uninfected thoughts before coming back to you a day or so later with our deep dive episode featuring John and Clicker Corner with all those delicious video game Easter eggs. Joining me this week, as always, is a man that I've spent my whole life protecting. It's little Gareth.
Not true. You forget, mate. You forget where you came from, what you were when I met you.
England.
I dragged you through the murkiness
Great
of your...
Britain.
Yeah, well that. Yeah. Yeah. And now look where you are. Australia. So... is that better? I don't know. But it is probably my fault. So, hello.
Of course, we have just seen the season finale of The Last of Us titled Look for the Light, episode 9. What did you think, little Gareth?
Regular-sized Gareth. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it again. I think we've all sort of dealt with this recently, you, John, and me, and but just why are my emotions so high at the moment? I find it really hard to watch like father-daughter stuff and just not be really upset. And the start flashback with Ellie's mum, with Anna, and little baby being born into that world, it made me really sad. And I used to be able to watch stuff like this and not care, and now I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. The world has been opened up to you. You have been awoken to the, I don't know how to say it, Gareth. You were trudging through life, not caring the world.
Yeah.
And now you've got all the cares.
I was like Joel. I was like Joel, and now I'm like Joel. You know?
Yeah. So you were like Joel, and now you're like Joel.
Exactly.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm a bit conflicted about this episode, Gareth.
I know what you're gonna say.
Do you now? Do you really? Look, I'm going to start off by saying it's a fantastic episode. Okay. So before anyone goes, oh, how did you not like that? No, I'm saying to you right now, it's a fantastic episode. It's got fucking great stuff in there for non-game players and game players. It's got new moments, it's got a bit of extra lore on why Ellie is immune, which is fantastic, and I loved it. It's got extra lore on Joel and what happened to him in the sort of aftermath of Sarah's death near Outbreak Day. And it hits all the moments, all the sort of moments that the incredible ending of the game does. And I imagine for first-time viewers, like the first time we played the game, it's probably going to really, really affect them. And it will have them thinking about it for a long time. Like I've said this before, I actually think about this game and The Last of Us Part 2, I would say, on a weekly basis. I genuinely...
Your little alarm goes off. Oh, time to think about... The Last of Us.
Yeah, it is fucking weird. There are some... And everyone who's listened to this has something, whether it's a song or an album or a film or a TV series, that you can never get out of your psyche. And this ending to this game or this world or these characters is one of the endings and one of the things that I will think about on a weekly basis. It just pops into my head when I'm driving to work, or it pops into my head when I'm watching something, and then I compare it, inevitably to this. And for me, that makes it very difficult for this episode to live up to what I experienced for the first time in 2013.
I think, let's be fair, there is an element of it being rushed.
Yes, we will get onto that. That is
and there are
huge.
There are certain bits that are missing from this part of the game that I think could have been effective to have seen. And I guess we'll come on to that as we dive into hot takes. I imagine if it's not one of yours, it will be one of mine. So, are you going to kick things off?
I am. I just want to say before we dive into the hot take, I've got a couple of things just to add, little Gareth. Yeah. I just want to say that before anyone goes mental, that I do think that overall the arc of this season is incredible, right? And what they've done is fucking amazing. But
No,
I just
you
want
hate
to
it.
elaborate
You hate it. That's fine.
I just want to elaborate on something you said there, and we've talked about it for several episodes now, and everyone knows we've talked about it. The fact that this finale is only 43 minutes, and we'll come on to it in a hot take in a sec. But I cannot, for the life of me, fathom why that is. I don't understand why they wouldn't give us more. I don't think more here would have taken away from the fantastic episode. I think, if anything, more would have really made that decision that Joel makes at the end even better, even more earned. And that is what I'm wrestling with over this next day or so before we record the deep dive. And I'm going to watch it obviously a few more times, and it's beautifully short in a way, so I can watch it a few more times. And then I'll come back to you, dear listeners, with my score, of course, in the final deep dive. Of course, we are also having a season wrap up where we will score the season, but that will be a separate thing. And just to say, if you are, before we get into the hot takes here, if you are listening on any other platform that isn't Fan Critical, please do switch across to Fan Critical. Search Fan Critical on any podcast app or platform, or Spotify or whatever, and subscribe. That'd be muchly appreciated. We've got over 300 episodes on there, reviewing things like Star Wars, Marvel, Stranger Things, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones.
Star Wars.
Fucking Star Wars. Yes. Have you heard of it? It's indie film. Very good.
Yeah, just from your reviews.
Mandalorian's on there, and that's back. So me and John will probably talk about that at some point. We love bloody Mando. So that's Fan Critical. Search, any podcast platform. And, of course, write in your thoughts on the finale and our coverage, really. You can email us at fancriticalpodcast@gmail.com. Please do send it in fast. We're actually recording in about 12 hours after this one is released. So please do send those thoughts and theories in if you want to feature it in the podcast. If you do miss that deadline, of course, we can read your emails out potentially in the season wrap-up podcast. So, Gareth, should we start with some sumptuous, delicious morsels, which we shall call hot takes, and the final hot takes of said season? Hot take
number one.
Okay, so Anna and Ellie. Now, this is a whole new sort of segment for anyone who has actually played the game, and the thing that's amazing about it is
the thing
about it is Ashley Johnson is actually playing Ellie's mum in the show.
Yeah.
But she plays Ellie in the games.
Yeah.
So in a weird metaverse way, Ellie is giving birth to herself.
All right, don't make it weird.
Well, it is a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, yeah, when you put it like that, it very much is. But do you know what's mental about this, I think?
Go on.
Is if you didn't know that, you'd think this is a brilliant bit of casting. Doesn't she look like she could be Ellie's mum? Like,
yeah, great casting.
They look
really
so
good. Where'd you find her from?
Yeah, but they do. They look really similar. Like face shape and eyes, everything. Like I was like, I sort of felt like I should check before I said anything, just to make sure that they haven't like edited Ashley Johnson's face in any way, because I was blown away by how much she looks like she could be Ellie's mum.
Imagine that. Do you want to act in this thing, but we're going to change your face? What's the fucking point? I mean,
just get someone else. Like,
I suppose then, in saying that, what about all those Star Wars monsters that they get in like the bars and that?
Nah, they're not Ellie's mum. I mean? Definitely not.
That's true. Anyway, I thought it was a fucking traumatic birth scene, and the fact that we actually get tangible evidence as to how Ellie is immune is fucking huge. as it's a mystery in the game. But they're giving it to us here, Gareth. They're giving us this info.
And I quite liked it. I mean, it's a little bit sort of convenient, I guess.
Yes.
But in this world, something like that is bound to have happened at some point. So it's
chaos.
Yes. Chaos theory. So it makes sense that would have happened somewhere. And I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I mean, the other option, I guess, would just be she's just got magic blood, and that's also a possibility. Like,
magic blood and that.
Magic blood.
What you got then? Magic blood.
Bit of magic.
All right, okay.
Just a bit of magic
Sweet.
blood. So this is just as plausible, really. I imagine. I think some people are going to hate it, but I don't.
I think they will. I think some people love the mystery. You know what I mean? And I usually I'm like that, but I actually think this actually gives a very good reason, and they explain it later on in the episode, which we'll get into in the deep dive, about how she is immune to cordyceps, because every doctor everywhere, even in the real world, is like, there's no fucking vaccine for this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But even if they did make a vaccine out of it, you'd still get lunatics being like, no.
Yeah.
No. Have you not heard what that fella said on Facebook? I don't know what the equivalent would be in a post-apocalyptic world.
You hear what that nutter said in the Kansas City QZ?
Yeah.
What's your hot take 2, Gareth?
All right, let's get into it. I reckon a fairly big one. This has become a very human story. And there have always been elements to that with The Last of Us. It is a human story, but we've seen, I don't know, did we see any infected last week? We didn't, did we?
Nope.
And we saw one this week, and it was a flashback to 14 years prior. So the infected, it's interesting how they haven't played as big a part in the latter part of this season. And instead, I think they're focusing more on the development of this relationship and the idea of humans being the real
monsters.
Which is a cliched term.
Those
but
pesky humans.
Yeah. Humans are the real monster. So what about that guy over there?
Don't worry about him. You're the monster, yeah? So just...
Yeah. And there is a significant bit of infected interaction that happens in the game near the events of this episode that isn't in this. And that's what bit I'm talking about, and that bit's that's a deliberate choice, to say, right, we're not going to have Ellie and Joel versus the infected.
Yeah, I think they've just taken the infected out of a lot of episodes because, one, budgetary wise, I think it's difficult. Two, I think that they've toned down the violence in the game. You have to have hordes of infected because otherwise you'd be fucking bored. You need something to do. Do you know what I mean? You need to increase your weapons and build stuff and destroy. That is the elements of a game. Here in the show, I think it could get quite tedious if they just kept throwing infected at us.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's the right choice. Do I think there should have been more infected at times? Definitely. But that folds into my point, which is I'm going to talk about more in the deep dive about. I think there should be another episode in this season, to be honest, and I think that would be perfect as a 10-episode season. But you're right, Gareth. The lack of infected in this episode and last week has been a hot topic on the internet. One that I don't necessarily agree with because, as I said, I think it kind of works. Getting rid of them for the most part, and then it makes them more impactful when you do see them, which I really like.
Yeah, but to clarify, I'm not passing judgment at this stage.
Sounds like you are. I'm gonna
ruminate and have a think about it before I let it infiltrate my scoring of the episode. If in fact it does, but
Yeah.
it's just an observation. It's an observation that they've gone down this route, and what we're left with is an incredible character-driven. I suppose it is character-driven. It's also kind of very circumstance-driven. But the character elements of this show are incredibly strong. And who knows? Maybe it wouldn't be as strong if they lent too heavily into the infected.
Yeah, that's right. And now let's talk about another little character moment. Another character joins the episode in a way, and that is Jerry the giraffe.
Yay!
Yeah. What do you reckon to this beautiful, iconic moment?
Well, I was looking forward to this moment from our preview pods. I think I mentioned it. And it's lovely, isn't it? And it's it's what Ellie needs in that moment. She's very forlorn, very quiet before this, and
distant,
very distant. Yeah. And then just the innocence of animals can touch us all. Like
it definitely can. And this moment in the game, and we'll talk about it, of course, in the deep dive in greater detail in Click a Corner, but this moment is like just such a welcome relief. Because you've just had these horrendous things happen, like last week's episode with David, and the journey that these characters have been through. You can just soak up this moment in the game and just watch these giraffes sort of just roaming around and disappearing off into the sunset. It's fucking beautiful. And sometimes, on my latest playthrough, I just sat there for like 10 minutes just watching these fucking giraffes.
How have you got the time for this, man?
I don't know. My missus is probably shouting at me like, "Can you help with the baby, please?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm just watching these giraffes."
You've got an 18-month-old. Like, there isn't the time to sit around watching virtual giraffes.
Well, you don't worry about my time, son. Okay, I just
want to know where you're finding it. That's all.
Dear. But yes, it was lovely to see them, and I like the fact that the giraffe seemed like it wasn't terrible shit CG. It looked like it was an actual real giraffe, which was an added bonus.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about seemed like the giraffe was a good actor. Good bit of casting there as well. Actually,
I mean, did a good job. I did have this vision, and I haven't listened to the official podcast from them yet, or seen the making of episode which they're releasing after this episode aired. But I'd be fascinated to see if they actually just got a giraffe in a green screen room. That would be fucking awesome. Anyway, let's crack on. What's your hot take 4, Gareth?
Hot take 4 is another one that I think some people are going to dislike, but I found the hospital massacre and the way that was done really powerful. It was a really kind of affecting bit of television. So everything is kind of sort of, it's like a dreamlike. It's like he's in a trance, and like everything's muffled, and there's no expression on his face at all, and he does not. Like, you think back to episode 4 or 5, whatever it was, when he has to shoot that old guy who was accidentally using a shoe instead of a gun, and you can see it on Joel's face, and you can hear it in his voice. Like, he doesn't want to kill this guy, and he kind of has to do it. But here, and we've seen it last week as well, it's like Altered Beast. Remember that game on the Sega?
I do.
It's like he's taken that little floating pill and turned into the beast, and there is no stopping him. There's no reasoning. There's no there's no empathy within him anymore. He's just this kind of monster. For compassionate reasons, but still, a guy has got his hands up. He's got his gun down. He's like, I give up. I surrender, and he still kills him. and
Yeah.
without second thought.
Obviously, this is like the most divisive, probably, point in The Last of Us history. And it's interesting to see how, and I think this episode pretty much does beat for beat translation of what basically happens in the game. Joel is blinded by love, right? And the showrunners have talked about this in a way that love is this amazing thing that, you know, in this emotion that we can't comprehend. However, it also is the cause of a lot of tragedy. And it's the balance between those two things. And this is a love story, but it's not a happy love story. And what Joel does is selfish.
Yeah.
And it's the wrong choice. And doesn't matter what way you, and we'll get, this is the crux of the episode, so we'll talk about it in a deep dive, but whichever way you fucking try and paint it, whether you love Joel and Ellie and you love them together and you think that he deserves this new chance, Marlene even says to him, you know she would choose the option to try and save people, to try and save the world.
That's a bit of a cop-out, like, why don't you fucking ask her rather than just drugging her?
And this is the point.
Yeah.
And that's what should have happened from the start. So I'm not saying that Marlene and the Fireflies are the innocent ones here, because they're not, because they are doing something horrible. They should have given her the choice. Yeah?
But then...
And they never gave her the fucking choice. And when you take away people's fucking free will and their ability to decide things, and this is what Joel doesn't like especially, this is why he goes fucking overboard. It's a different story if Ellie comes up to him and goes, look, I know they've offered me this is what I want to happen.
Yeah.
It's a different fucking story, maybe.
But then, this is why it's such a good philosophical question. Like, is it fair to ask that of a 14-year-old? Like,
agreed.
It can
I think that is the point.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. We'll talk about more in deep dive, because I don't want to get too in depth. Because I'm sure John has two cents.
Just from a technical perspective, good scene. That was my hot take.
Yeah, fucking great music as well. I love the music used. It's the same as in the end of the game. And we'll just talk about the last thing. Hot take 5. I swear. And it is the ending of the season 1 of The Last of Us.
I thought you were just doing like a Backstreet Boys reference, or who sung that?
Could be. But it's basically exactly the same as the game. And this is not a bad thing. This is a great thing, because I was genuinely concerned that they were going to fuck this up somehow and not literally copy the game, because the game has the most iconic ending of any video game I've ever played, maybe anything I've seen, and it stays with you forever. Like I talked about, it's with me every week. Hello, I'm here to make you think about this dreadful ending,
Monday,
this
8 p.m.
terrible thing that someone's done.
Time to think about. All right, yep.
Yeah. Cheers for that. And the look on Ellie's face after Joel, swears to her that everything, that he said is true about the Fireflies, that there's loads of people who are immune, and they couldn't do anything with her, so they just left, and it was attacked by raiders and all that. Marlene's dead because of them, and nothing to do with him. It's something that stays with you, and I'll be interested. I'm fascinated if you are a person who has not played the games and you want to talk about this, or you want to let us know your thoughts on it for a fresh perspective. That's why I can't wait to see John's thoughts. Then write into us now at fancriticalpodcast@gmail.com and let us know what you thought of that ending and the way that the season ends. What did you think, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, to copy the ending, do it exactly as it appears in the game. It relies on having good actors to pull it off well as well.
Yeah.
So they're lucky they've got that. And they do. It's brilliant, because Ellie clearly doesn't believe Joel in that moment.
Oh, no.
And, you can see that all over Bella Ramsey's face.
It's a hard thing to portray.
Yeah. Like,
because
I don't believe you, but I also know that I have to sort of trust you, but this doesn't make sense.
I love you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saving me, but fuck you for taking away my choice.
Yeah.
And you killed the only sort of motherly figure that I have in the world. I don't believe a word that you're saying, but I'm indebted to you. It's like the most conflicted fucking thing ever. Like, how do you portray that? And I thought she did a fantastic
All right, so
job.
Bella, if you can just show on your face, Jesus, so many things.
Okay, these are the emotions I want portrayed in your face. Okay, and go. Yeah, she did a great job, and I'm sure we'll talk about that ending more in the deep dive, but we have run a little long here. We don't want to go too deep in the hot takes because that would be silly, wouldn't it?
They're cooling down because they're getting too deep.
Yeah, too deep, too hot. We'll be back, of course, in a day or so, dear listener, with John for our deep dive on the season finale and the scene-by-scene breakdown and the clicker corner of all the video game Easter eggs. And, of course, we'll talk about that ending and where that might take us in Season 2. In the meantime, please do subscribe to Fan Critical. That is our main channel, Fan Critical. Link is in the show notes. Just search it on any podcast platform as well. Of course, your support means the world to us. Thank you so much. And thank you to little Gareth. Let's go scurry away now. Gareth, let's go watch the episode again, make some more detailed notes, and come back for our deep dive of episode 9 titled Look for the Light.
I've got parenting to do and shit. So
no, I'm just going to go stare at some giraffes for a little bit. So I might just do that for a while, to be honest.
All right. Well, you have fun. Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.